Hello and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Mark McLemore. From hits like Tesla Girls to If You Leave, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, or OMD, was a top electronic band of the 1980s. My guest Andy McCluskey and his musical partner Paul Humphreys were at the forefront of blending music with graphic design and video art. One of their most influential albums, released in 1983, was Dazzle Ships. Today it serves as the inspiration for an exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Tucson. Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, great to be here.
For those of us who know the concept of Dazzle Ships as an album title, it turns out there's a lot more behind it. Can you tell us a little bit about the artistic movement that inspired you?
Basically, vorticist artists managed to convince the navies in the First World War that they should paint their ships in bold stripes and colour blocks, which seems completely counterintuitive, but you can't hide a battleship. So instead, try and fracture it and break it up so that it's difficult to work out how big it is, which direction it's going in. So Dazzle Ships were ships from the First World War that were painted in these ridiculous, amazing, fractured colours. And the guy who used to do our sleeves for us, Peter Saville, saw a vorticist painting of Dazzle Ships in Liverpool Dry Dock and said, "Andy, can you write a song called Dazzle Ships so I can do a sleeve for it?" We made a whole album called Dazzle Ships. It was a classic case of the tail wagging the dog, but we're really glad it happened.
So what are the ways that that art design worked its way into the tour and the marketing effect for OMD?
Well, obviously for us, it became a big part of the whole campaign for the album. And Peter and his associates designed for us a stage set that I guess really was straight out of early 20th century kind of Russian constructivism. And it had moving parts, and it was standing in this incredible setting, this art piece in itself, just made the look of that tour incredible. And it's lived on now for almost, 40 years later, people still talk about it.
Well, when you and your bandmates decided to revisit the album and start playing this material in front of audiences again, what did you find? Did you find old friends, or did you find maybe a little bit of a cringe factor going on?
Absolutely not. The thing is, when the album was released in '83, it was just a little bit too far ahead of its time, and it didn't do particularly well commercially. It is now considered to be our fractured masterpiece, and everybody reveres it, but it was just more than 15 minutes ahead of the time, as Warhol would have said. So when we look back at it now, we treat it as a really beautiful art object. And in fact, we played at the Royal Albert Hall about 3 years ago, playing the entire album. 5,500 people travelled from around the world to see us do it. So there was no cringe factor. We were absolutely immersed in it and loving it.
When you think about where you were at artistically at that point, does it take you back to 1983 when you play those songs now? Or have you found a sort of a different lens to filter the songs and the lyrics through for yourself?
Many of the songs were actually highlighting the Cold War, which at 1983 was still very, very prevalent. And I was taking samples from shortwave radio stations, where there are many communist stations in Europe. So it's, strangely enough, it still seems to have a relevance. I mean, there's a song called Radio Waves, which used to have the current American and Russian leaders in, and I now just substitute Trump and Putin. So it still has a relevance.
So you've updated the samples.
Yes.
Do you have tips to anyone about how to maintain a creative partnership over 4 decades like you and Paul Humphreys and your other bandmates have done?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. In fact, it's nearly 50 years. We've known each other since we were 7. I think the elements are quite simple. Is stay friendly, work in the same room. Don't try and use the internet. That doesn't work for creativity. And weirdly, support different soccer teams. I'm Liverpool, he's Man United. That seems to work. I don't know why.
All right, good advice. My guest was Andy McCluskey from Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. The Museum of Contemporary Art, Tucson, presents the gallery show Dazzled, OMD, Memphis Design, and Beyond through April 13th. Thank you for watching Spotlight on the Arts.